So I haven't looked at that, but yeah, I think they're around 200 if you're going for the nicer ones. And I know people were interested in what kind of interface cards. You can get a standard like RCA in, 4-channel RCA in, and you can use ZoneMinder with that. I am running this as a virtual machine, so that makes all kinds of things complicated. Plus, I like the ability to unplug a camera and move it to a new location, so I don't want to worry about wires. And again, I live in an apartment, so that's not going to be the best. But yes, you can have BNC connectors or RCA connectors, or all these different kinds of hardware are supported. ZoneMinder has a list of hardware compatibility. So if you have questions like, if I buy this, will this be supported? They'll probably be able to answer it there.
So what do you need those for? Because the cameras are wireless. So they're just feeding it through, your wireless network to the computer.
Right.
So what would you need the connectors for? Is that like if you want to hook up VCR or DVD recorder? Or
well, not necessarily. If you have a hardwired camera.
Oh, hardwired camera. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, especially if you're going to have distance, like runs from one side of the building to the other that you don't have an access point or whatever, or you have like really high-end cameras or really low-end cameras, because they sell pretty cheap cameras that are wired, but you have to worry about hiding them, powering them, and all that kind of stuff.
You can use those like here, wireless.
I don't know how well it would work for wireless here, because you'd have to have them, well, I guess you could set them, have a username and password that's static, and have them log into the network, assuming it doesn't change the SSID on the network. Then, yeah, I guess you could. There's just a lot of latency that you would encounter over Wi-Fi, though. So if you're looking for a nice professional setup, I would always recommend wired. But again, this is not professional. This is me tinkering.
If you go wireless, can you encrypt?
Well, it depends on the firmware of the camera, and also your encryption method that you're using to hook it up to your router. So I believe I have a WPA2 encryption with from the camera to my router, so it's encrypted as far as that goes.
Because you're being in an apartment building and you're showing your kids sleeping and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And, you can. I use the FOSCAM IP webcams like in my church. I can demo it if you'd like later and show you what it looks like and how to operate the camera on a single mode basis. But it's wireless right now. There's a camera up near the altar. It's totally wireless, and it can be accessed from any place in the building.
Yeah, and those are the same ones I use too, the FOSCAMs. And they're actually great. I started with just one before I got ZoneMinder, and even the newer ones, unfortunately, you have to still, I think, use Internet Explorer. You might have to. No, I think you can use a VLC plugin now, but it has two-way audio, so you can actually talk through the speaker in the camera. And also listen, but none of the sound features go into ZoneMinder. It's just video surveillance. But yeah, I really like the embedded FOSCAM firmware. It's gotten a lot better over the years.
At the church, I put a dead plug in the back of the speak back. I don't want somebody talking back to the priest during the sermon,
Oh wow.
on the camera.
That'd be bad.
He can't see over that.
So yeah, if you guys want to talk about the hardware later, definitely let me know. So I'm also running Nagios on this box, and I have SendMail as my mail transfer agent. The only reason I said that stuff at the bottom about Nagios is you might think that 2 virtual CPUs and 5 gigs of RAM is a little overkill. So I'm also running some other stuff on there. And the reason SendMail is important is because I have events send me alerts via email. And I could also send texts. I don't really want to get texts. I don't care that much. But that's important. If you want to be able to email yourself, you need some kind of mail transfer agent installed.
What are some examples of events that the software can recognize?
Well, it's all motion-based, and we'll talk about And the big thing with ZoneMinders is zones. You can set up zones, areas that it's going to look for. You can set different kinds of alerting, detection kind of things. It could be based on pixels, percentage of the image that differs, blobs. I don't know a lot about how all the intricacies of that works. I have a very high level overview. I'm sure just spending, you could spend days just on that small topic. But yeah.
The topic of defining events.
Doing all of the zones, and then filters are another topic. So you can get really in depth in here.
Will the zones depend on where your cameras are, or how do you
define your zones? And I'll show you the interface. You basically can drag a box of X amount of points and say, okay, I'm just looking at this door frame, and just do a ... around that door frame. I don't care if anything else around here moves. I'm just looking at that door frame.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can really customize it. Again, downside of wireless IP cameras with pan and tilt, if I'm looking right here, and then I move my camera here, that also moves my zone.
Your zone.
So then I'm going to be looking right here instead of at the doorway. So it could be better for either cameras you're never planning on moving, or outside cameras or static fixed cameras. I'm not going to go through this. It's just a laundry list of all the features off their website. It does a lot, just to slide up. One thing I think is cool is X10. I don't know if you guys are into home automation in X10. I use it a lot. You guys heard of Hey You?
It's what?
Hey You. That could be another presentation, but it's X10.
Okay.
And if you have this hardwired to a box with the serial port going to a dongle or whatever that controls your X10, events can trigger lights. You are looking at your front door, you have an event to look there, it turns on your lights as soon as you walk in. Just an example. Pretty cool. I haven't messed with it. Other cool stuff, it can do FTP and SFTP and SMS, lots of stuff.
Okay, so with your SMS, then you wouldn't need your mail.
Well, the way that I would set up SMS, and I think it's the preferred method, is every cell phone, well, I shouldn't say every, it's a blanket statement. Most newer cell phones have an email address associated with them. If you send an email to my phone number at txt.att.messaging.com or something like that, it will go as an SMS to my phone. So it's actually still sending an email, or receiving it as an SMS.
All right.
So you would still need the mail transfer agent for that.
All right, okay.
There's tutorials in here that tell you how to do it the easy way. I think actually it is in the repositories for Ubuntu. I tried it when I first started and it just failed, and I had no idea why. And I never really tried to use a pre-built version again, and I've just compiled it from source. You might have better luck because again, I was on Ubuntu like 8.04, so it was a while ago. So here's just a link to the tarball and the guide that I used, and it's kind of a haphazard guide because it starts talking about CentOS 5, and then it goes into CentOS 6 at the bottom and says, oh yeah, do some of these steps from the top, but don't do all of them. And so it's kind of piecing it together to get it to work. But pretty much Google is your friend at that point. If you get an error, Google it and find out what other people did. And just my base, I started with CentOS 6.3, so it was just command line, and I installed everything. No desktop was installed on there or anything like that. Okay. Yeah, so again, Google, if you have any problems. My problems that I encountered a lot, certain features wouldn't work with some certain features wouldn't work right out of the box, and I ended up tailing logs, and I saw references to the whatever net : SMTP, and that's, if you guys know, that's standard Perl jargon. That's looking for a plugin. So I installed that. Oh, it works now. So I just kind of output a list, a little tongue-in-cheek, but I output a list of all the Perl modules I had to install. Some of those are for Nagio, so I can't say all of those are for ZoneMinder, but a lot of them are. So have fun with Perl, I guess. Another thing, especially with the FOSCam, I had encountered is in the logs, it has this weird thing with libjpeg that it doesn't see the beginning bytes and the end bytes of the image being sent correctly. So at the end of the image, it sees a corruption. So probably 100. I don't know how often, but it's like multiple per second, just blowing up my log, and it's awful. So what I ended up having to do is download libjpeg from source, modify a file, comment out a line, I think, recompile that, then recompile ZoneMinder. So it was labor intensive, but it was worth it for me after spending weeks of just watching my logs blow up. It gives you something to do, though, right?
The dependency hell.
Yeah, dependency hell. It reminds me of RPM dependency hell from back in the day. You know, this needs this, but this needs this, but this needs this.
Yeah. Did you say that Ubuntu 12.04 or whatever has a pre-built that you don't have to worry about the...
Yeah, Ubuntu does in the repositories. I can't speak for it. I haven't tried it.
Because you're mainly into Red Hat and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's one part of it, and then the other part is when I did try, which was years ago, it failed on me, and it just didn't work. But I don't think, I'm sure it could have been fixed and remedied. So, you know, if you are adventurous, try and build it from source, or, you know, if you want to do it the easier way or follow a tutorial, that's quite all right too, as long as you get it to work.
I would, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have a, you know, a pre-compiled.
Yeah, and the tutorial.
Ubuntu or something like that, where I just, you know, I don't want to.
Yeah, well, really quick, looking at this tutorial. So,
64-bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have 32-bit versions, but if you're going to use more than 4 gigs of RAM, you want to go for a 64-bit version. So this is from scratch. They're setting up your network and apt-get install ZoneMinder. And then they do a little configuration. So it seems like they do some stuff with the time. That's pretty simple. They even have you generate an SSL cert. I guess if you want to use HTTPS and have a self-signed cert. So Ubuntu has a lot of good documentation out there, and I'm sure with that tutorial, or here actually is a link to other versions, older versions of Ubuntu, you'd be able to figure it out, no problem.
And you mentioned 4 gigs of RAM, and how, well, I guess it's a hard question to answer, but I would like to keep things simple. I just want that right now, just the one camera to watch the backyard dog.
Yeah.
Is there any way, well, I guess, how would that require much?
No, I think, I mean, I don't know what ZoneMinder's recommended is, but I would say at least 2 gigs of RAM. I don't think you would have to have a 64-bit OS.
Right.
I think 32 would be fine.
Actually, Tom, all you need is a camera. One camera will feed a stream, and you can record that stream on on any computer, Windows or Linux computer, just through the browser. So you wouldn't need software like this.
Well, I don't want to record. I want to catch it right when it happens. I mean, recording, yeah, recording is.
Yeah, you can watch
is
your
okay.
camera like that.
But, is there any recognition software where you can train your software to see this is a dog, this, and
No,
nothing
it
else
just-
is?
No, when something, it's like those lights you have on the outside of your garage or whatever, that trigger whenever a dog runs by, that's how the camera triggers.
But there's nothing to,
No,
well,
you'd capture people and you'd capture dogs
yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know that anything that we could buy or use would be that sophisticated.
maybe military grade, but
Right,
that kind of,
But
right.
if you're just looking for a one camera easy solution, the FOSCam I think is a really great solution because it has built-in web interface and all that. This is more if you're going to actually want it to multiple cameras with recognition. The FOSCam can email you, it can upload stuff.
Recognition of,
Movement.
of movement, okay.
Right. Okay, so I have some screenshots. I'll later show you guys what my system looks like, but just to show you, I guess I can now. Alright, so this is my system. It says ZoneMinder, it's running, it's configured for low bandwidth. You see up here the load, the disk usage, log. These are my 4 cameras. I got really creative with the names. FOSCam model number, FOSCam 1, FOSCam 3. So right now they're all in monitor mode, and I forgot who asked, but how to change it from one mode to another. I think we do. So these are the different modes that you can change it from. None, so just disables it. Monitor, which is just viewing, don't record anything, don't alert me about anything. Motion detection, that means it will, if it detects movement, based on your buffer that you specify, it will record the images before and the images after, and it will create an event based on your filters. I'll get more into the filters later, but these are just the options. Record, straight recording, it's just going to do a constant recording. Motion record, if it detects motion, it will start recording from that point. No detect, I'm not even sure what that does. I've never used it. So I guess if you really need to know what that is, go to their website. So montage, that should bring up all 4 cameras. So this is like the fun part. So
Is this live?
this is live.
Did you
So
warn the wife
I told
and
my wife
kids
not to do anything inappropriate. So, yes, this is my apartment. Welcome. Yeah, my wife's actually in the kitchen cooking. She's blue there. Okay. Oh, you can't even see. The resolution on this is not the best. There we go. But this is actually, if you're wondering what this is under my bed because one of my cats hides there and he also likes to run away. So we want to know if he's actually under our bed or if he's ran away. So I put a camera under there. That's my inner geek using practicality, and there's my wife. So I'll tell her that you all saw her.
The cat runs out, he can get to the outside then?
No, he'll be in the hall, but still, you know, when we were coming in with a bunch of groceries or something,
Oh, yeah.
we have 3 cats, I see 2 cats, I don't know where the third one is, if he ran out or if he's under the bed. He does like to go under
It
the bed.
seems to be like a little laggy.
Yes, it is laggy because I'm running this from my Time Warner internet at home over Wi-Fi. So, yeah.
But when you record it, does it look like...
No, it's seamless when you record.
Okay.
Because it's on my home network. Right now, this is over the WAN. But on the LAN, there's less latency. A lot less latency. So you wouldn't be able to see, like, jitteriness.
I'd like to see a dark, you know, your infrared, what that, can you aim something outside? Tell your wife to point the
Turn the light
camera.
off.
Yeah, turn the light.
I'll tell you what, I'll show you later on our church
Okay.
camera
Okay,
what the infrared looks like.
yeah.
Wow. This internet doesn't seem to be the fastest.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that fast, too.
Yeah, I'll wait for that to load. In the meantime, and I'm gonna try and move some cameras. Again, remember the latency. By the time I click stop moving, it's probably gonna start moving. But I just click on one of the images, it pops up another window, and then up here, you see it says control. I hit that, and finally this loads. And I can
Oh, I see. Okay.
move with arrows. It's really slow.
Okay.
Probably have better luck with
Getting ready.
4G.
You got a hotspot if you want to use it. Right?
Well, let me try and do something. Because I actually have an app for my phone.
Yeah, mine just gave me 1.6.
Oh. What's this?
Hot door pizza?
I'm good actually. Just ate. Thank you though.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Oh, there it goes. Now it's moving.
Oh, you're kidding, so cool.
And
Should have a freak your wife out?
what?
Should have a freak your wife out if something starts moving on her?
She's used to it now. But yeah, I used to check in and be like, "What are you watching?" And she'd be like, "Oh my God, stop looking at me." Okay, so now it's being a little more responsive, but that's just the general gist of being able to pan the camera. We'll stop it. Okay, and I'll probably get in trouble for doing this, but I'm gonna see if I can turn my lights off at home.
That's right, you're X10. Okay.
Okay, so living room off.
And the X10,
There we go.
you use it, hey you.
And it happened pretty quick.
If your wife flips off the camera, we're gonna know she knows what's up, right?
Yeah, she might give a stern look. She keeps turning it back on, I think. She's hiding because she knows we're watching. So, yeah. That's the fun you can have with this. These are events that have previously recorded, so I've had it set up to do motion recording. And so this is what the event windows look like. It gives you a total score, an average score, a max score, how many frames it recorded. So let me find one.
So there's the kitty.
Yeah, there's one of the cats. And you were asking about how fluid does it look when it's recording. Right now we're just looking at frame by frame, so each one of these is just a JPEG. But if I want to look at the event, I look at it like this.
Oh.
And that's actually, it's just playing the JPEGs fluidly, but if I want to export it, since I have FFmpeg installed on here, I can output it as an MPEG, Windows movie file, AVI, movie, software, or shockwave.
What does it take as raw? The JPEGs or
Yeah, it just basically, if you've ever played with FFmpeg, you can set a folder or a sequence of JPEGs, and it will just seamlessly put them all together, and that's essentially what it's doing.
And then you translate to any of those other
Right.
formats. Okay, from the JPEG.
Yep. And you can increase the frame rate, you can increase the size or decrease the size. You can also export this as a tar. You can have it with the details, like the alarm rate, what time this was, even though it's already time-stamped at the top. And you can do it as a tar or a zip, if you want to be Windows friendly. Well, I guess Linux can. You can look at the frames. You can see the ones that actually really alerted. Then you can see, because you set a buffer, and you can say record 20 frames before the event and 60 frames after the event. That way you just capture the entire thing.
Oh, good. Does it include, like, can you do like open CD stuff where it kind of puts blocks around, like facial recognition?
There is a mode with ZoneMinder that it will have red lines highlighting the movement. I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but I know it is possible.
Because if it would know that it's Tom or Tim or whoever it is, that it could say, hey, this is Tim.
Where were we the last time?
Yeah.
We've never been stated.
That would be kind of nice.
Go back to here, because I don't want to leave everything out. So if you're looking at one of the event windows, one of the windows of what's going on, you see all of these events below it. So you can click on them, you can see easily what their scores are, so you don't have to look at all of the events from all of the different cameras. You can see it's specific to this. Again, here's an infrared view of what it looks like when it's really dark. And this bright light right here is actually another camera. So they're looking at each other, looking past each other. And yeah, that should look familiar. With the montage view, you can. You can change to look at a 2-wide grid or 4 or 3, depending on how many cameras. You can customize that. This is getting into the zones. So this is the under bed zone. I'll be notified whenever my cat's underneath the bed. I don't want to be notified about all of this other stuff. Like if I sit on the bed and it goes down a little bit, I don't want to know every time I sit on the bed. That's not useful. But so this is the active zone right here, which you see is 21.36% of the image, and I set that manually.
Can you make it so it does an audible like tone or something like that? Alarm.
You can through the events you can execute a command.
Okay.
So really, you can do whatever you want. You can have that event call a script that turns your air conditioner down. I mean, you can do whatever you want as long as you have the ability to do it. So this is just what it looks like when you're actually defining the zones. So you see, well, I'm not sure if you can see, but all of these little dots here are represented by each of these points. So you can add another point, and I can add it right there, so I can create all kinds of crazy shapes customized to exactly what I need. You see it's using the blobs method. I'm not really exactly sure. Obviously it has something to do with blobs of things changing, but there's a lot of other ways. I think in the next, okay. There's other ways of changing the alarming method, whether it's pixels, percentage, or blobs. these are presets. I use these because I don't really want to research exactly what each one of these not filters, but each one of these boxes does. So you can use fast, low sensitivity. If you're in the backyard and you only want to catch big animals or something like that. Or you could use high sensitivity if you want to see every single squirrel that scurries across, something like that. So this is getting into the actual setup of the cameras. This is just one of my cameras example. You see it's using HTTP because it's an IP camera. And this is actually customized for the FOSCAM. This remote host path is going to differ depending on what kind of camera you use. For you, if you have that FOSCAM, this is actually exactly what you need because that's the way that their firmware goes. If you go to their IP/videostream.cgi, you can pass all these username and parameters and resolution. You can do all that through the command line.
Can you use webcams too?
You can use webcams. Yeah. You can use hardwired cameras. You can use like USB webcams, but those would be different.
It's like with the hardware, with the BNC connectors, you would need
Right.
hardware to, like on the PC, to hook it up to.
Right, and instead of going to remote, right here, you go to local. You can also do file or FFmpeg. Let's say you have a device that's streaming straight to a file. You can have ZoneMinder tap into that file and examine that file. So you can link monitors. So if one is alerted, that will have all the other ones start to record. So, that'd be good if you had a shop or something, and it's after hours, someone's at the front door, you want everything to start recording, if they go to the front, the back, or anything like that.
Oh, that's a good.
Yeah. So, this is the source. Just to give you an example, it's setting the resolution as 8 and the rate is 6. This is going to depend on, again, what kind of camera you have, but chances are if it's a popular one, there's already some documentation on how to do it. I set the capture height and width, the color, set the timestamps. Here's where the buffers are, the before buffers, for the connection reset. Menu. Okay, well, I guess it booted me out of that. It doesn't make buffers. Okay, it likes control. We're going to go to control. So, if you have a pan and tilt camera, you can specify. These are the Axis API V2, that's a really popular camera, Panasonic IP cams, those are really popular. So they already have some pre-built camera profiles, and basically these are the profiles that say, when I hit that button that goes to the left, how do I know what to do? And so these profiles basically say, when it goes there, send the camera this command. And again, that's through the HTTP. It's basically sending an argument through HTTP.
It's similar to almost like a driver for the individual pieces of equipment.
Very, very basic level kind of driver, because it's just interpreting what you're passing it, and then it's putting it into an argument and sending it through an HTTP. Kind of like any kind of CGI or PHP script that you're passing arguments to. It's doing a very similar thing. And I actually had to find someone who had the same camera as me who wrote it, because I have no idea what I'm doing. There's a lot of smart people out there, so just use their resources. And found one that was I have 2 different FOSCAM cameras, but they work perfectly. Well, when you're local, at least they work perfectly. We're on a high-speed WAN. So yeah, that basically just says, okay, this is the username and this is the password. This is the IP that you're going to go to, and you can do all kinds of stuff even within here. You can, if you have a pan tilt zoom camera, you can do zooming. You can have auto-focusing. You can set a home for it, so if you hit the home button, it will go to a fixed position. You can have presets, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. So like this one has 8, this has 3, stuff like that. So you can really customize this as much as you want. Just some other features, like this red is when there is an alert detected, it turns it red, which I think is probably the only color that most people would want, but if you wanted it to be pink or blue or whatever, you can change it.
Is the resolution, depending on the camera, the resolution of the camera is how the picture quality is going to be?
Right, and I can actually get better resolution than 320 by 240 with my FOSCAM, but I don't want to. I want to be able to limit my frames per second. I want to be able to limit that resolution. I don't want to have a huge image because that's going to be more resources, whether it's memory or CPU. So I set it to only have that condensed.
So with CPU, could you just dump it to the, like a file? Instead of like
Dump what?
dump the video stream to a file? Because it shouldn't be too much CPU.
Right, just from the camera you can do that. You can dump I can record the camera that's at church, for example.
But yeah, the point of this is it's actually analyzing the video in real time. So if you wanted to do a motion record, or not a motion record, just a straight record, by all means increase your resolution and get the best image possible. Because it's not going to be looking for someone moving or a certain percentage moving. It's just going to be recording and not analyzing. So that would limit how much CPU and memory you would use.
Is there a configuration for that? So maybe, well, it's just sort of monitoring, it stays low, but then when it actually alerts, it changes the resolution to make a better picture?
That is a good question. I'm not sure.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because you want more, like if somebody's breaking into your building and you want to know what they look like, instead of a
fuzzy image.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I suppose if you have those presets, you could have like just a preset that changes it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some way, either with linked monitors or creating a filter that would actually modify itself. Basically, if I detect that monitor 3 has an event, then reconfigure camera 3 to have 640 by 480 resolution instead. It's a very good question. I'm not sure if that's possible.
Well, it looks like that configuration for just about everything.
Right.
I mean, is there any limitation granted you so far, or something that you wish you could do that you haven't been able to?
No, not really. I've been able to do pretty much everything that I wanted. And honestly, if I was really after something, I would just write a bash script for it and be able to have it execute that command. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. Show you guys that. Okay, yeah, let's get into the filters because I've talked about them. Let's actually look at them. So I click on filters, and this is just a blank canvas, and you can do a lot of things. It doesn't look too complex, but you can add as many fields as you want, and look how many things you can actually do. So you can do it by the monitor ID, the name, the date, the cause. You saw when my screen went blue earlier, just for a second. That's called a signal linked. So that means since it's over Wi-Fi, sometimes it just drops a packet or two. Even though it's TCP, it still drops those packets. And if I want to do, I can show you, one of my filters I actually have okay, there's just a basic one, but if the cause matches linked, and that would actually create an event because it sees that blue and that's a certain percentage of the image changing, I can delete it. So I guess that would have been a limitation, but I found a way around it. Because I don't want to be alerted if my camera reconnects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Nice, okay. Okay, so, here's a good one. So if the average score is greater than 7, it's a pretty arbitrary number, I think I played around with it, and it is not because of signal, and it's not because of signal linked, then email me the details of this. So it basically sends me an email, has a JPEG on there. You can actually have it send you a video. I don't want a bunch of videos in my inbox, so I'll stick with the JPEG.
So can you configure it, set it up so that when you're gone for the day or for a weekend or something like that, it automatically records or senses somebody's there in your apartment or
Right, and that goes back
and
to,
sends you an email?
right, that would go back to the filter that we would, that we were talking about earlier, that if it's between this and this time, delete it because I'm home and I don't want to be alerted that I'm home. But if it's between this and this time, I'm at work, so email me if anything occurs. I don't like doing that, mostly because I don't care what happens in my apartment a lot of the time. But if there's a day that I get home early or my wife gets home early or we're on a holiday, and I forget to turn this off, I'm just getting blown up on my email all day. So,
But if you know you're on vacation or
right,
something like that,
you would have the
don't
foresight to turn it off, supposedly, but I apparently have struggled with that.
Maybe you can do something like with the GPS thing on your phone.
I've actually tinkered with Bluetooth.
Yeah. It's like the GPS thing that knows like when you go into work and it determines you've got within 100 yards of work, it puts your phone on silent instead of ringer or something like that.
Yeah, and I've played a little bit with Bluetooth. I tethered my phone to my computer, and there's, I forget what it's called, but there's a Bluetooth program that will, when you're in range, it will do X, and when you're out of range, it will do Y. And I haven't really gotten that to work because my phone doesn't always pair with it right or whatever. But that would definitely be something that would be cool.
It's kind of like a little key fob thing where you know, walk up to the car and the door unlocks.
Right.
Same kind of idea.
What's nice is actually I have an app on my iPhone and on my iPad, and I can set it to record over from that. So if I'm going on vacation, you know, I can set it to do motion recording.
Well, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, if there was some way to do that. I mean, it would save people like $50 a month to ADP or whoever it is up here who does your home monitoring. Cause
Right.
You get the image and he's saying, hey, look, somebody just popped the door of my house. You can call 911 yourself. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of great implications. Like when I go out of town, I definitely would use this. Or if I'm going to be gone a long time, or I know no one should be home. Definitely, this is a great use.
What do you do with the cats?
What?
What do you do with, just wondering, what do you do with the cats when you're gone?
The sensitivity level, right? You probably...
Yeah, they trigger it. They were actually one of the main reasons I initially got this, is because we were going out of town and we wanted to see who's eating whose food. And I was like, oh, I can take care of that, wife. Don't worry about it. So it just gave me an excuse to do stuff. But yeah, they definitely do trigger it, and if I wanted it to not trigger it, I would have to very carefully think about where I want to place the cameras. You know, because they're gonna hop on the counters and tables and all the places you don't want them to, and they're gonna trip them. I could just focus on the very top quarter of the door if I wanted to do that. So, you know, no cat should be leaping that high or whatever, unless something's really wrong.
It tells you might want to have that for some funny home videos.
Yeah. But yeah, you would have to do it in a way that you don't think it would get false positives like that.
The only time I've seen somebody really do something before is a friend of mine had bought some off-the-shelf product, I don't know, Netgear or some Linksys, and just one wireless camera, and he pointed it there, and they had like a website you went to or whatever, and that was all there was, and he could move the camera, but it was just one, and you couldn't set any timers or anything like that. But he had puppies, and he wanted to make sure the puppies were staying behind the baby gate in the kitchen or whatever. So he could look at his puppies whenever he wanted to, just go to the URL.
Yep.
That's about all it did, but it didn't have any of these kind of features.
Right, and that's how I started with the FOSCam. I mean, it's honestly a lot of fun, and you know, I dare you guys to get a FOSCam and then try and not start thinking about, well, I could do all of this other stuff if I did this. I mean, it's just a very slippery slope. But
So they have like one of those just like out-of-the-box solutions where you go to foscam.com and
Yeah.
log in your camera ID and you can just do the bare minimum stuff, same kind of idea?
Well, you can't do it through their service. What I did before this is I actually opened up a port on my router and forwarded it. So basically I go to, using like DNS, or if you have your own domain, go to your domain with your port number that you have opened up, and then you're inside your own network and you're looking at your house or whatever you're looking at. And that's probably similar to what you're
I'll demo it when you're done.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a great solution if you don't want to get as invasive as having multiple cameras and, you know, doing all this stuff that might not be necessarily what you need or want to do.
So it's all web-based then too, so.
This, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, each of the cameras acts as an IP server, as a web server itself. You don't really need any other computers in the house or anything like that. You just plug the camera in, attach it, and it becomes a web server broadcasting out to the internet. So you can log right into it with your name, your username, and your password, and you can see the camera and you can control it.
Okay.
I'll demo that in a minute.
So they've got the software,
All built in.
web software,
Yeah.
web server.
Built right into the camera.
Okay.
And
That's
And this is your false cam?
yeah, they're the same cameras I have, and actually, basically, I don't like the idea of having FOSCam exposed externally, having 4 IP cameras exposed on my external network. So what ZoneMinder is doing gives me one landing place with authentication. You have authentication with ZoneMinder too, or sorry, with FOSCams, but this gives me one place to be able to view all the images at once and to be able to control them in a centralized location. If I wanted to do that with FOSCams, I'd have to have 4 different windows open. So it's kind of pick or choose exactly what you'll need to do. But like you were saying, it's a built-in web server. When I was showing you the source,
Can you control yours
right
too?
here, the source, that's just point to this web server with this URL. That's all it's doing. So it's built on that infrastructure.
The only downside to the wireless cameras, I think, would be is if somebody had some kind of device that jammed the wireless signal, then you couldn't.
Well,
Actually,
if they were doing that, they'd
ZoneMinder.
be doing it to my whole home network and
Yeah,
they would have
yeah.
hell to pay.
Yeah, but then they would have, they, like for business, I was thinking like if you had wireless cameras and somebody knew that you had wireless cameras, and the exploit would be to get some kind of jammer to jam the wireless cameras or wireless network so you could go in to do your dirty work.
I would always use wired cameras for professional use. I wouldn't try and use wireless. It might be more convenient, but it's also it's not
security.
professional grade.
Yeah, security.
Well, you could also do some sort of thing that, if all 4 cameras go out at the same time, it triggers an event. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can ping the cameras or something. And
Well, and I actually have Nagios monitoring all of my cameras. So if the camera gets unplugged, which my wife did the other day, and I was like, what happened to this camera? She's like, oh, I guess you do tabs on all of your stuff. You know, I'll know.
Can't choose through the cable, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Nagios and how you,
If we have a little time at the end, I will, because I know he's still going to demo his stuff.
I'd like to, in addition to whatever you guys do, if you can combine this video surveillance and X10 for controlling lights and whatever else, and some kind of recording system where if there's a flow of water in the house, I want to know about it because I'm not there, and there should be no flow of water at all, zero.
Yeah.
And then if there's, you know, just 1 gallon, I want to know that.
Yeah, X10 can do some stuff like that. I know.
Okay.
You can monitor the temperature. You can change the temperature, and they have weather gauges and stuff. I've
You
not
can,
played-
but can you monitor water flow?
I believe so.
I'm sure you could, but I'm just wondering if you can do it easily.
It's happened a lot, like people don't turn off their washers and dryers, turn off the water supplies and the hoses break and you're gone for a month and it's like...
Exactly, exactly.
There's a simple flow device that you can put on a pipe that I've seen, where all it is it sits in the pipe this way, and if any flow occurs at all, it creates a
close it.
contact point.
Sort of like
And so I'm sure you can pick up, you know, if there's a contact, if the closure happens,
Oh, yeah.
let me know.
You'd have to put something into like the pipe though.
Yeah, you'd have to, that, or you'd have to somehow tap into the city's water meter.
Yeah, see that, yeah, that's the only thing I would know.
So you can use your cameras, like if they're on, to turn on your lights. If you come in the door,
You could, yeah.
it senses that you're like above this point of the door. It's kind of like, turn on the lights.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
So it's not a
instant, so I don't know how useful it would be using something like this. I've actually used X10 to do that. They have a motion sensor that can trigger other things, so A4, and it'll turn on light A4. Because with this, it's actually going to analyze the video, and then based on the filter results, then it will be executing a command. So that could be like 30 seconds later, and you're not going to want to just stand in the door for 30 seconds before the lights come on. But, you know, if you wanted to send you an email, that's definitely something that it could be used for. Or let's say you're monitoring your garage, and so if I pull into my garage, turn the lights on. By the time you get inside, the lights come on. Something like that there's a little bit of latency involved, that would be fine, I think.
Yeah, maybe the Wi-Fi thing too. If you have the Wi-Fi on your phone, it detects that your phone connected to your Wi-Fi network, it triggers something like that.
Well, that would have to
Kind of like
be
the
through...
Bluetooth thing you tried?
Right, and that would have to be through some other kind of external thing, not like the Bluetooth. It would have to be maybe Nagios can send an NRPD command, send just a command to the server to execute this script that turns this monitor on or turns this X10 device on. There's really a lot of really cool things you can do. I haven't even tapped the surface. Just showing you some of the config files real quick. You know, there's hash. It's basic authing, but there is hashing for it. You can't really see the whole screen, but
What is the hashing do? What is that hashing do?
oh, it just it obfuscates your password, so it's not like
Oh,
it's,
okay.
Obfuscates.
yeah.
Eschew obfuscation. No, I got.
It's a fun
There's
word.
Yeah.
Here's the uploading. You can have it upload through FTP or SFTP to another server, NFS, or well, you can't do NFS, but you can do just FTP or SFTP. But you can have it go to a certain server. You can zip it. You can even compress the compressed files. You can do lots of stuff. Here's the X10 because I think it'd be really cool to do. I don't really have the means to do it on a virtual machine. I've thought about ways of doing it, and it just seems a little overwhelming.
Support interfacing with X10 devices,
Right.
so with your lights or whatever.
Right, so if you have a built-in controller on a serial or a COM port or whatever, you're pretty much good to go. And it tells you what house code and, yeah. So that would be really fun. Here's the email settings. So sending emails here. This is just basically building the body of the emails that you'll be getting, saying, okay, hello, there's an alarm. I'm going to include an image. If you do want to have the opt message, which is the secondary message, this is where you could use your SMS kind of stuff. So it would send you an email or a SMS to let you know. And usually those will be not as formal, just more to the point. Alarm detected, here's the information, and either a JPEG or not, depending if you have MMS, like multimedia messaging. And then tell it the address that the email is going to come from, where your SMTP. It's possible, I know some ISPs provide mail relaying, so you could point this to smtp.timewarner.com. I'm not sure, but I'm just using my local MTA mail transfer agent to send it through Gmail, so all of my emails come from my Gmail account to my Gmail account.
I'm still wondering, if the SMS, like I get these little messages from Culver's, new ice cream deal today, and, a whole bunch of different things, and Grand Central Station, and so forth. Those aren't, as far as I know, those are just using SMS. They're not using an email interface there.
I don't know what they're using on their end, but I can guarantee you that if I send an email to your phone number at I
believe that.
Okay.
Yes, I use that all the time.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering if I wanted to not have to configure the MTA.
Yeah, I think you'd have to do that.
There's no way that you can
This
send.
is not going to know how to route, how to get out.
An SMS.
Yeah, I mean it's just underlying email.
Okay,
So-
all right. There's okay.
I'm not sure like if the big companies how they do theirs, but at least for as far as this is concerned, this doesn't have to be an SMS. This can be just a secondary email if you want.
Right.
But that's what most people use it for is SMS.
Okay.
We have some services out there that do that kind of stuff, because I know one of the big things nowadays is like, they have like competitions and things, like, the old rally racing type of things, and they can log everybody's cell phone number into the thing and send out a group message, about, what your next step is, kind of like scavenger hunt type of programs, and stuff like that, so there's some way to do it. I know my email thing that I have, depending on what level, you can buy SMS messaging bundles or something.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know how it works either.
we'll look
Either way
at
to do
it.
it.
I know, I know, I've got the question now.
Yeah.
Now, that's, next thing is the answer usually comes after some
A little while.
Googling, yeah.
Yep. Just if you guys are interested in the iPhone interface, so this is pretty much what I see on my phone when I log in. But you can do the montage view. It shows me how many events on each camera. I can stop the server. I can restart it. I can change it from monitor to record, motion record, all that kind of stuff.
And they would have this for Android.
I looked a little. I don't have any Android devices, but there's got to be something out there for Android. If not, you always can, if you have this opened externally, just go to the website on your phone, which the actual limitation of this is I can't pan or tilt any of the cameras through this app. So if I want to do that, I actually have to log in through the URL and actually use the web interface. And that's my cat sleeping under the bed.
Oh, he or she is there. Is it the same cat every time?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other cats tried to get under there and got stuck, so I haven't done that since. This is for the iPad. It's the same, but larger. And I have some links in here for ZoneMinder. They have a virtual appliance if you're running any kind of VSX or ESXi at home, VMware stuff.
Question, is it all open source?
Yes.
So completely open? Wow,
Yes.
that's cool. So can you take it like commercial? Like we have a Nighthawk or it has an owl for the logo.
Yeah, the Night Owl or whatever it is.
Night Owl, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for a deep digital video recorder.
Yep, I've seen those.
Yeah, but it's harder than this to get through to all the menus. I think this would be better for that.
Well, I mean, that's, the thing with open source is it's really flexible and you can do a lot of different stuff, but as far as probably your Night Owl goes, it's probably really stable. I don't think it's ever crashed on you or, anything like that. This hasn't crashed on me, but I would never assume that it wouldn't. So that has the stability. This is more of a fun factor, and you can scale it to whatever you need.
This is.
They have a live CD for it, so you can just boot up off the CD. I actually tried it out the other day, and I didn't have any luck booting off the CD, so I don't know if it's good or not, but there's a link in there if you guys want to try it out. I don't know if it's still being developed or not, but yeah.
Oh, and there's a live CD. See,
It's a
for
virtual
lazy people like me, you
appliance.
just plug in the CD and
Well, that would, you wouldn't have it configured, and it's just, pretty much living in the RAM, but it'd be a good way to see, like, well, can it
Take
do a
my
lot of
own
different
camera.
stuff? Let me poke around with its guts and see what it does. Assuming it works. Again, I didn't have too much luck with it, but maybe you guys will have better luck than me. Did you want to show that demo?
Well, I was gonna, but I can't get logged into the camera from here. I've just been trying. It's unusual. I've been able to log into it from every other place I've tried. Unless, I don't know if it's ports being blocked here or not. I think it just uses port 80.
Don't you walk in the ports? You have free access.
It's blocking me.
I keep getting login fail here.
Yeah. It doesn't like me.
Was there
I wonder
a
if
wired
you want
connection
to
in this room, did you say?
Yeah, if you have a cable.
Yeah, I do.
It's like right over where he's at.
I'm gonna say I've got a hotspot.
Well, let's try the wired cable first if that doesn't work.
what's your service there?
This is Verizon.
Verizon.
I had T-Mobile in Texas for like 10 years, and I came up here and found it didn't work too well. Yeah, I had my just bought one of those Galaxy Nexus phones, the unlocked one from Google.
Yeah.
Like 2 months before I found out I was coming up here.
You just came up from Texas?
Yeah.
Where? What's
Houston area.
Oh, my son just started University of Houston in
Okay.
September.
Yeah. He said his wife graduated from Clear Lake, and I went to Clear Lake twice. Yeah, actually,
Where is it?
well, Clear Lake is
Oh, Clear-
one of
oh,
the
yeah.
campuses about 20 miles south.
Is that one of the UH?
Yeah, there's UH downtown, and there's UH Clear Lake. Well, UH downtown actually was never part of the UH system, and they actually changed their name now, and they're like Renaissance or something, I don't know. But Clear Lake and UH, one's UHCL.edu and one's UH.edu, but since we didn't have a football team, I was with the main campus to watch the games and stuff. And they almost made it all the way last year.
Yeah, they had a good year.
You don't have a Texas accent?
I grew up in Rockford, Illinois.
Ah,
I tend to adjust. I was there for 25 years, so.
Okay.
It depends, when I get on the phone talking to the guys down in Knoxville or someplace like that, or, you know, if I have my boots on or something, I tend to.
Yeah,
You get in the truck and you got your, what is it, 92.9 or the Wolf or whatever playing on,
Thanks, Steve.
you're at,
Yeah, no, it's
you're
great.
at F-150 Texas edition. When you're driving that, the accent.
What year did you get?
Huh?
What year?
He just started freshman
Okay.
in September. He's at the honors college, I think at the main campus or what. I didn't even know there were all these other campuses until.
What's he studying?
Pardon?
What's he studying or intending to study?
He's in the business school right
Okay.
now.
Yeah, we're doing God's school of business too, so.
A lot, they're doing stuff with Dick Cheney, Halliburton and Deloitte.
And I used to work for KBR, which is an offshoot of Halliburton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My father-in-law does, he sells, drilling equipment.
Well, I actually worked at Enron, and then after that, they rolled off their pipeline to a company called Southern Union. Like, they made a company called Cross Country Energy, and that got bought by Southern Union. And I was supposed to, I stayed there like 4 years after bankruptcy. I was still working there, and they made me an offer to go to this other company, and I turned it down. And so then about 3 months later, I took the offer and I moved. So the only office I had left was this big VP office. It was pretty sweet. I was taking pictures and showing them my wife. Check this out. I mean, the thing was bigger than this room with windows right across from the Four Seasons Hotel. The next day, Halliburton shareholder meeting was at that Four Seasons Hotel. And all these protesters were down the street banging drums. They had a float with a globe and a George Bush, going like this to the globe on the float, and banging drums. And I'm on the fourth floor with all these windows, and that would drive me nuts listening to them all out there all day long, trying to, interrupt the shareholder meeting across the street.
I think that is my background.
Pretty psychedelic there.
Cool, man.
That's an interesting
Beatles
picture
album.
coming too.
It's like, so did you get slip off some acid?
Timothy Leary is our pastor.
Yeah. Right.
Well, this is strange.
There, heads on for a second.
Here, nothing I do.
No,
Do iPads have like mini HDMIs or some way to display themselves with a projector type of deal?
Yeah, it's not HDMI, it's just the standard port.
Standard hole?
Yeah, but you can buy a VGA adapter. I think it's just VGA. They might have HDMI or DVI
I
or.
wonder if one of these does then. That was one of the things I was looking at. The old Nexus 7, the new Nexus 10 has a mini HDMI port or whatever, a micro. This one doesn't. It only has the one hole and then the headphone jack. But I got one of those little cables so I can turn it where I can plug a flash drive in or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's actually down.
they wanted sort of a head-to-head, iPad versus Android thing at one of these conferences coming up, and I was like, yeah, my Android thing, I was trying to use that as justification to buy the 10-inch one when it comes out next week, because, or one of those Asus ones with the silly keyboard that attaches to home. There you go.
This is what the main screen looks, actually this is what the camera looks like, and you can see how it can tilt around, or pan around like that rather, and tilt back and forth by just swiveling the ball. The little dots around the infrared lights on it actually that will illuminate it It can project the infrared lights out about 30 feet, not too much more than that. And then, of course, the lens is in the middle. Behind it, you can see the Wi-Fi antenna that's sticking out the back. And in the back, there are other connectors back there too. One is one for a standard Cat5 cable if you want to run it on a wire. And
Oh, so
there's
you can
also...
run it Cat5?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, the original ones were all Cat5. The wireless ones came a little later. So there's also input jacks and output jacks for sensors and things that you want. You could hook a light to it, or it'd have to be a light run through a transistor relay trip sort of a thing. Or you could have it turn a light on or something like that. And you could also, if you had any other kind of a sensor thing, a trip wire or anything, it would, or a sensor pad in the carpeting maybe and somebody stepped on it, it would trip it that way. That would be good if you do have cats and stuff in your house. It would take more pressure on the carpet than a cat to trip the camera. So there's various ways to trip the sensors. Around the bottom you can't see them, but there are holes around the sides so you can set clock zones like that. And if something happens over in this zone or this sensor triggers that way, the camera will pan itself around and take the picture over there automatically for you. And it'll either send it to you, it'll transmit it to an FTP site or email or whatever. That's all part of the built-in software that's in the camera. And this image you're seeing, of course, is the web server that's actually just built right into the camera. It does take an SD chip from a camera, an SSD chip, the micro one, the tiny one in the back, and you can record up to 64 gigabytes of video right on the camera itself. So you don't really even need it connected to a server or whatever. You can have it as a totally standalone unit.
So those ports that it has are not just for input, but also for output for actuator?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can...
Foscam.us.
Oh, yeah, .us?
Yeah. And you can actually sign up on their website and get emails, and they have discounts pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And they'll send you emails, and I actually got one yesterday, I think, for an outdoor camera that was like $130 or something. But
With pan and...
I think it was an outdoor one, so it was fixed.
Oh, okay.
These are all the different cameras they sell. Mine has the H.264 output. You'll see like this one right here is H.264. And here's one with the outside housing and stuff if you
Okay.
want
That one, yeah, pan and tilt. outside.
So you can pan and what's the other
Yeah,
word?
that one is a pan and tilt.
Pan and tilt
bottom,
and zoom.
and zoom.
Yeah, that one has
Outside, how, do you know the price on that, by the way?
Yeah, I still look down here. This one's $439.
Ah.
This is one of the nicer ones. though.
Yeah.
They do have cheaper ones that are outdoor cameras also.
Is there, how is the resolution in those? Is it pretty, like you see in the movies or on TV shows where they can
No, the cheaper cameras, the $150 cameras have the digital zoom, so you lose
Pixelated.
pixel resolution. But the more expensive ones, like that one right there, does have a
Optical.
optical zoom, thank you. So it will zoom right in and you won't lose resolution. And they have the smaller ones like this kind of a camera too. It does all the same kind of things, but it does not pan until it's just stationary.
So I could take that exterior one, just put it on my house.
Yeah, and
Or
this is
the-
the one that
this
does
other-
the pan and tilt for outside.
Is that, oh, okay, so what's the difference between those two?
This one does not pan and tilt, you just point it in one
Oh,
direction.
okay, that's, all right.
And the cheaper ones,
That's the outdoor one, right?
yeah, that's outdoor. This has got an outdoor housing on it. It's got a sun deflector on it, a sunshade.
I wouldn't mind getting like that for, or like, and it's wired, I could, wire it in for like our entrance.
Sure.
So we could get all the, you know, license plates, because we had, at one point, somebody was breaking into their pop machines.
Mike, on that one that you were showing, the $400 one, what is the distance that it can
The outdoor cameras tend to have more of those little things around it, but I'd say you'd be lucky to get more than about 50 feet, 70 feet
Oh.
on the, but you can get additional infrared lights and install them on your house, and it will light up your backyard with infrared. Nobody can see it at night, but it will flood your house with infrared.
So during the daytime, what is the range?
Well, there's no range during the daytime. You can see as far as unless it's fog or something. That's just
Okay.
for at night,
So
for lighting
then
up.
all you gotta do is get your infrared, boost that.
Yeah, and if you,
Okay.
I'm trying to get these extra jacks that are in the back, there. This is a
Wow.
little jack right here. This is the audio jack. You can plug a separate microphone into here. Here's the SD slot right here. There's the SD slot for this one. And then there are some more jacks for the, on some of these models, I don't know if this one has them, but there are jacks here for the external inputs and outputs. And then here's where you plug in your Wi-Fi, your Wi-Fi antenna goes right there.
And they actually sell bigger DVI antennas, so if you want to have it further away from your router or whatever you're hooking it up to, it will have greater range that way too.
Yes.
So can you have one with really good resolution with these Foscams?
Well, it's like 720p resolution is the highest with these. If you jump into the access cameras, which I'm have worked with, they're a little more expensive, but you can get much higher resolution than that.
You're talking about $1,000?
Yeah, $500 to $1,000. The camera we're looking, I have one customer looking at it, it's $620. It has the optical zoom, and it does pan and tilt and all that kind of stuff, and it's got 1080p or 1080i resolution on it. But for some reason I just can't log in here, and it's very strange. I know the camera is working, so. But I can play you, I can probably play you a playback on here that I recorded with it.
But you did manage to get over to.
This is the view you would see from the camera. This was recorded. I think it was Sunday. Well, it's got Friday date on it. So.
Is this the optical or digital zoom?
This is digital. This is just a cheap camera. It was $120 on sale or something. Normally I could pan the camera around and tilt it for you, but this is a fixed recording. All I can do is I can kind of zoom in on it a little bit, but it would decrease the resolution and something. And I have the volume control down here. So if I click here, I could speed the image up a little bit, 3 times faster. If you're searching for something real quick, like the dog running across the yard, when you find the dog, you can slow it back down again. Go backwards and forwards using the slider bar. You can jump ahead, just like any video clip.
Could we take the video there or your video and put it in a video?
Yes, you can. It's just a
movie maker kind of thing.
You sure can. It's just a I forget what this is, an MPEG or a JPEG or something like that. Well, this was a .asf file. So, but you can change how you're recording it and what you're using. You have only a few choices: MPEG or ASF files or a few others. This ASF file is nice because it's a very compressed format. The old one only did the old camera we had only did MPEG, and that was you did it with a huge file on the disk when you were done.
What is it? I've never heard of the ASF. What?
Oh, I know you're.
Not that it's new or anything.
It's,
I'm just.
It's an AVI type of a file, but it's a compressed AVI.
Okay.
I don't know what the letters stand for.
Okay.
But yeah, with ZoneMinder as well, you can export it as the whole list, and you could put it into a movie making program or a video editing program.
Now if I have the camera mounted on my house, the only way I'm going to be able to tell if the dog or a human being has come over onto my property is if I put some flags out on the near the property line. And if I see the dog in front of one of the flags, I'll know he's on my side of it. Is there any other way? I mean, other than
Well, that
Well,
zone
with
thing he had, looked
ZoneMinder,
like
yeah, you could
set
do
up
that. You could do that with ZoneMinder, yeah.
You stepped out of the room right as he was showing under
Oh.
his bed, but if you watch the videotape when we're done, you can see how he was able to set that exact zone and draw a line right across there, and only when the cat goes into that specific area on
So when your
picture.
dog like crossed that
Yeah.
line, it would alert you.
I'll try and pull it up and show you.
Okay. Even at a distance of 150 feet.
Well, it's going to depend on your camera and how
Okay.
precise you define your zones. So if you know,
Okay.
that tree
All
is
right.
150 feet, and I want a zone to go, 10 feet in front of that, you'd have to use some kind of marker to be able to figure that out.
Marker.
Whether it's flags or a person or a landmark, just some kind of known distance.
Okay. Okay.
Or else with the video, you can almost look at the,
Right. I mean, if you're looking at the video and then you're like, okay, they're standing here, and I mean, you'd be able to relatively figure it out.
That's oh okay. Yeah. All right. Now, if the wind is just blowing grass, or how do you?
You can adjust the sensitivity, but if
sensitivity.
you have a lot of trees blowing leaves and stuff, it's probably not gonna be anything you can do, other than pointing the camera down or setting that zone so it doesn't include the trees.
This is when you stepped out. This is like underneath the bed. I only want to be alerted when there's movement within that red zone. And so
Okay.
I define that zone, and you see it's 21% of the entire image. And you can add different points, so I can add as many points as I want to make a custom image or whatever. I can just do it over a doorway.
Points meaning.
Like each one of these is a point. Like each edge.
But they mark a polygon or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so it can be a square, quadrilateral, or whatever you want it.
Whatever. Okay. Whatever the closed.
And you can set your sensitivity, whether you want high sensitivity, low sensitivity, fast or slow, stuff like that.
I'm gonna try logging into a different computer, and then from the different computer, I'll try to see if I can get access to the camera.
those are all your computers? Or
Yeah, well, these are the computers at the work, at the school, I mean.
wow.
Trying to remember which one would be on the same subnet as the camera is. Someone even logged me in to remotely control the computer right now. I've got to go out of the building and back in by using the IP address of the camera, or the DNS address.
You don't know the local IP?
It's on a different subnet.
Well, yeah, I guess. I posted it.
Yeah, so it is.
Here it is. How do you know? This is you, right?
When you do log into the camera the first time from a Windows machine, you have to download an ActiveX script and run it off of the camera.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I hated about FOSS cams. Recently they've been getting better, but before you could only do the audio and all that kind of stuff through Internet Explorer and only Internet Explorer. So it definitely, that was another reason that it pushed me to go to ZoneMinder, is just because I didn't care about that feature and I didn't want to have to use Internet Explorer. And also with ZoneMinder you can click on the image and it moves it. And when I was using FOSSCAM before, you couldn't do that. You had to use the buttons. And you had to click. But it seems like they've gotten a lot better with the SD slots and stuff. That was really cool. I hadn't seen that with FOSSCAM before.
Yeah, the cameras are moved by leaps and bounds. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, none of this was available. And the first IP camera I had was not wireless, for example, and it didn't have any audio on it either. So, and then I had the X10 cameras. I bought a bunch of those like 10 years ago and played around with those.
I've heard that you can take like Cat5 cabling and if you have a BNC camera, you can, there's this converter thing, or that you run Cat5, BNC, Cat5,
You can. Yeah, I've got sets of those converters if you want it. Just a little converter.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So how long of run can you do with it? Like just the same length as like a Cat5 cabling, or?
Well, you know, BNC is a little shorter. I'd say you'd be lucky to push more than about 100 feet on it.
Oh, with,
All you're doing is converting the, and it gets worse because you don't have the shielding you'd have with coax cable.
okay.
The shielded coax, you might get 150, 200 feet out of it, but with that converter and running through a Cat5 cable, you might not get even 100 feet out of it.
Well, you can use plenum cabling that has extra shielding and stuff.
That helps.
You're still going to lose, have loss with going through a converter too.
Yeah, we run platinum cable through most of our building anyway.
There you are. Now you're live?
Yes, now I'm live and remember I'm going through a double connection in and out of the building and to through the log in, so I don't know how much this will show. And I'm surprised the lights are on at church, the choir fracture, but I think it should be over. And I can't click the sound on over here. This is the sound button. The others are, the other buttons are mute, to mute the sound. There's a snapshot button, so you can take a single snapshot if you want. This is the recording button, and this is the playback button. And this is the sound on or off. And this is the speaker where you can actually speak through your speaker to the camera. You can talk to anybody that's standing in front of the camera.
What's the difference between that sound on-off versus the mute?
That's a good question. I usually don't use the mute. I just you can turn the sound on and have it continue to record on the recorder, but when you click the mute, it won't come through your speakers anymore. I guess that would be the difference. Once I click the sound off on this one, it won't record anymore either if I'm recording. This is the record button. If I click the record button, actually on this machine I haven't set up any subdirectory to record it to, so I've got to get it from here probably. Here. Record start fail because I haven't told it what subdirectory to put it in. I have these presets and you can set all these alarms on here by using the presets. If I click one of these presets, there you go. You can go to position number 2 should pan over to the choir for me. I think that's the choir position.
All right,
There it goes.
somebody's
Oh,
there.
yeah, that is, the choir is practicing.
And you
So-
freaked him out.
Now talk to him.
Should I start singing too? I'll see what song they're singing. Unfortunately, I don't have any way of passing the sound through this whole connection to the audio. Transmission.
How silent are these cameras when you pan and tilt them? I mean, if
Perfectly
somebody
silent.
was,
Yeah,
if somebody was sneaking through your house at night, and
They wouldn't hear.
They wouldn't hear the cameras.
if anything would give them away, it'd be the infrared LEDs, because,
Red
I
or
mean,
something?
yeah, they do glow red. I mean, you can't see the light being emitted, but if you look directly at the LEDs, you'll see them red.
Okay.
So, and, you know, like when both my cameras are facing each other, you know, it's like a blinding light. But that would give them away if you see the red lights following you.
I kind of hope there wasn't anybody in church so we could show you what it looks like on the LED because it just turns into a black and white image.
A friend of mine down in Texas had this thing where he had it on his phone, and he had put a camera out in the woods, and it had a cell phone attached to it, and it was monitoring his deer feeder. It was sending him pictures so he could see about what time at night the deer were coming to the feeder, and you know.
How far was it? It was going through the cell?
Yeah, he had a cell phone thing hooked up to it, so he used the cell phone to transmit the images. Or whatever,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, you can get it. Oh, it's ready made for you.
You can see them, you can see their eyes glowing in the dark. and everything.
So would it just make calls when there was motion?
I'm not really sure. All I know is he's like, here's some pictures from last night. He pulled up his phone and you can see the deer out there. And it's like,
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
You know, so-
Right? Or the dogs? No. I'm obsessed with these.
yeah, it could. I suppose if it can pick up deer, it can
Yeah.
pick up, because deer in Texas are only about German Shepherd size. So, you know, I like the ones up north.
Come on, really?
Serious.
Everything's bigger in Texas now.
No, not deer.
Here's all the options you have under the administrator settings. You can change the device information. That's what this is showing right now. You can change your IP addresses and stuff. Network settings, the wireless settings are right here. You can go through and select what kind of security you want on the camera itself. Put your keys in there. Here's your email settings, your FTP settings. So for just handling one camera, you can do most of the stuff that he showed, but just for the one camera.
One at a time. Yeah. I'll bet you there's probably some way to, or some software, web-based software where you can pull, where you could get a montage. You know, so nobody's developed it yet.
Well, I don't think that would be too hard to write your own script, because what ZoneMinder is doing, it's basically just plugging into that interface and just pulling that frame that has the image. If you just did that for however many cameras you had, created a simple iframe or whatever on a web page, you could just insert each one of those videos into a frame. I mean, that's not even something you'd have to pay for. That would be pretty simple. You know, the ZoneMinder is good if you want to be able to control a lot of that and actually analyze the images.
So basically, ZoneMinder is just built on top of what he's showing here.
Yeah, it's exactly doing that. It's
Okay.
going to this web server and grabbing this information, grabbing all of these streaming images.
All right, so we're basically, we just saw,
We saw high
you're at a
level.
high level, and now here's the,
Just coordinate
closer to the
multiple
wire here.
cameras or whatever.
Right.
The main thing is controlling one camera like this, or controlling 4 cameras at a time, or monitoring 4 cameras at a time.
And yeah, I started with just one of these cameras, and I was using the
You were using
email
this.
features and FTP features, and then I got 2 cameras, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. I have to log into 2 different places. And then I started using ZoneMinder so I could look at both of them at the same time and also control them in the same interface.
Okay,
And then
sure.
evolved.
So then you start buying better cameras, so the first camera, the cheap one, is the one that's under the bed or something like that?
Actually, the one under the bed's the newest one.
Oh, okay.
But it's also, it's the best one, and it's the furthest away from the router too.
Okay.
Here's the digital zoom. I'll see if I can zoom in here.
That's a pretty good picture, actually.
3 days, it just drops.
Yeah, it's usable. We're considering burning the services on DVDs to send out to the elderly and shuttles and stuff like that.
Straight on a website or something, I don't know.
Well, they don't all have computers at home, or the elderly and so forth. So,
And I used to make CDs in my church a long time ago, and sit there, throwing CDs out there.
You know, like Brandon?
They were just audio. Although I had to do that once, the IRS wanted to see a video. And the video, this is back in Enron days, and I put on a CD about, it was like a 24-minute video with a VLC media player on there and an auto exec thing that kicked off the media player. So all I had to do was put the CD in their computer, and then the thing would start playing, you know. And we had to make like 12 copies of that because they were going to have a conference call, and the IRS couldn't view a thing, so they all had to have their own separate CDs so they could watch the video at the same time. It's kind of silly.
this is 3x zoom. This is as much as you can zoom the camera in. But you see how dotty the lights get and stuff like that. So the digital zoom. Any other questions about the camera itself?
Just, I've been reading a lot about telescopes and, you know, looking out a million light years, but it gets me thinking about this optical zoom and what the limits to it would be. I mean, we're talking about, just curious to, are we talking about a half mile, a quarter mile, 5 miles?
Well, it varies on what camera you get. The better, the more you pay for the camera, probably the longer zoom you have. And many of them have interchangeable lenses. They use the C-mount lenses, so you can actually put more of it. No, not mirror lenses. The C-mount, the mounting part where you connect the lens together. That's been the 16mm standard for many years. The C-mount auto iris lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, you can put whatever lens you want on, and you can take some of these cameras and you can hook them onto a telescope, for example, to get, you know, one of those mirror telescopes you can get from Edmund Scientific and those kind of places.
The mirror telescope, you mean like the reflectors?
Yeah, I know
As opposed to
refractor versus reflector telescope or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, well, this is good. We got to see close to the wire, the low level with yours, Mike, and then, you know, the higher level built on top of, you know, with the ZoneMinder.
This Foscam company does have a multiple camera controller software that they sell for Windows systems too. It's, I think it's $39. So if you want to try their software too.
So it'd be basically ZoneMinder type application, but, you know, with the proprietary.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what features and stuff that has.
Oh, can you hook into X10 and?
I have an X10 cameras and X10 software at home, but that's altogether different. The X10 cameras are more like they're not webcams. They don't have their own IP software in it. They'll only run within my house. They run over the phone wires actually.
you're running it over
over the 110 volt wiring, they
Okay,
transmit their signals.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, look at what it looks like now. It says 3 volt contacts. Now it has the 3 volt contacts, and it also has the bookmarks like this. It's the philosophy of what these looks. So, yeah.
And somehow you can turn lights on. I never did figure that out. You can, with the X10, you can turn lights on and off.
And you can watch video cameras over the 110 volt wiring too.
Mhm.